Rome wasn't built on stones, it was built on money and power. The Caesars understood this better than anyone. From Julius Caesar to Augustus and beyond, Roman emperors amassed vast fortunes, not merely through conquest, but through a sophisticated combination of taxation, tribute, and strategic control of resources. Taxes were levied across the provinces, with citizens and conquered peoples paying both in coin and kind. Wealth flowed into Rome from grain, precious metals, and luxury goods, creating a financial backbone for the empire. Tribute from allied kingdoms, often secured through military intimidation, added another stream of revenue, consolidating the emperor's power and enabling grand ambitions. But conquest wasn't just about glory. It was about economics. Spoils of war filled Roman coffers, allowing emperors to finance public spectacles, build monumental structures, and maintain the loyalty of the army. The line between political authority and financial acumen was blurred. A successful Caesar was as much a master of ledgers as of legions. Rome's elite families often supplemented imperial wealth through land, trade, and banking networks, ensuring that power was concentrated in the hands of a few. The Caesars knew that control over money equaled control over people, armies, and even the Senate itself. Understanding the empire's economic machinery reveals that Rome's enduring power was never accidental. It was meticulously financed, managed, and exploited. Rome's wealth was not only built on taxes and tribute, but also on trade and the labor of the enslaved. Mediterranean ports buzzed with merchants trading olive oil, wine, grain, spices, and luxury goods from across the known world. Control of trade routes was crucial. The empire profited from tariffs, monopolies, and the strategic positioning of markets. Slavery formed another backbone of the Roman economy. Enslaved individuals, captured from conquered territories or born into bondage, labored in households, workshops, mines, and farms. Their labor generated enormous wealth for the elite, from the grand villas in Rome to productive estates in Sicily and Gaul. The productivity of enslaved people allowed Roman citizens and officials to live lavishly, finance armies, and sponsor public works. Trade and slavery were also political tools. By controlling access to goods and labor, emperors and senators strengthened their influence over allies and provinces. Wealth from these systems funded military campaigns, bribed political opponents, and solidified loyalty among the powerful elite. Yet, the system was not without risk. Over-reliance on slavery could destabilize regions, while disruptions in trade, pirates, wars, or rival empires, could threaten the delicate balance of power. Despite this, the combination of trade, slavery, and state control created a resilient economic structure, underpinning the empire's dominance for centuries. Rome's economy demonstrates that power was inseparable from financial strategy. Knowing where wealth came from, who controlled it, and how to exploit it determined the fate of emperors and provinces alike. Rome's power depended heavily on its ability to extract wealth systematically. Taxes and tribute were the lifeblood of the empire, funding armies, public works, and the lavish lifestyles of the elite. Provinces contributed via land taxes, poll taxes, and customs duties, with administrators meticulously recording every coin. Tribute from conquered regions served both as a symbol of submission and a direct financial boost to Rome. Cities like Alexandria and Carthage provided grain, gold, and luxury goods, strengthening the empire's food supply and treasury. The emperor and the Senate wielded taxation strategically, rewarding loyal provinces with leniency and punishing dissent with heavier levies. Rome's sophisticated fiscal apparatus extended to coinage, banking, and state-controlled markets. The mint ensured a stable currency, while treasury officials tracked expenditures, loans, and public contracts. Corruption was constant, but oversight and political pressure maintained a functioning system that allowed Rome to sustain prolonged military campaigns across Europe, Africa, and Asia. The wealth generated by taxes and tribute was not only economic, it reinforced Rome's political and military dominance. Funding roads, aqueducts, and monumental buildings, the empire created visible symbols of power, that reminded citizens and conquered peoples alike of its might. Understanding Rome's taxation system reveals a fundamental truth. Economic control was inseparable from political control. Every coin collected, every tribute exacted, and every financial maneuver strengthened the foundations of one of history's greatest empires. Rome's economic power was inseparable from its military machine. Conquests were not only about land or glory, they were calculated financial operations. Every campaign generated wealth through plunder, tribute, and control over trade routes. Victorious generals returned with sacks of gold, enslaved populations, and seized resources which fueled Rome's coffers and rewarded soldiers. The Roman army itself was a financial instrument. Soldiers were paid in coin or land grants, incentivizing loyalty and performance. Military engineers built roads, bridges, and fortifications that enabled efficient tax collection and troop movement, further integrating conquered regions into the economic system. Wars were expensive, but the returns were often greater. Provinces were reorganized to maximize revenue. Mines, agricultural estates, and ports became sources of steady income. Strategic wars in Gaul, Hispania, and the Eastern Mediterranean created a cycle of conquest, taxation, and reinvestment. The economy of war underpinned the empire's expansion and sustained its bureaucratic apparatus. Rome's conquests also influenced trade. With control over the Mediterranean, the empire monopolized critical resources like grain, olive oil, and precious metals. Cities such as Antioch, Alexandria, and Carthage thrived as hubs of commerce under Roman oversight, enriching both the local elite and the imperial treasury. Understanding Rome's war economy illustrates a timeless principle. Power and wealth are intertwined. Military dominance enabled financial exploitation, and economic resources funded military expansion. The empire's longevity relied on the precise orchestration of both force and finance, a lesson as relevant to rulers of antiquity as it is to the study of economics today. Slavery was the backbone of Rome's economy. Conquered peoples, prisoners of war, and debt slaves provided labor that powered agriculture, mining, construction, and domestic life. Wealthy landowners and the state relied on this system to extract maximum productivity at minimal cost. Latifundia, vast estates, depended almost entirely on slave labor. Fields of wheat, vineyards, and olive groves were cultivated by hundreds of enslaved workers under the supervision of overseers. Mines, especially those in Hispania and Gaul, were brutal and dangerous, yet critical sources of silver and other metals for coinage. Every coin minted, every luxury good traded, bore the invisible imprint of enslaved labor. Slaves were also central to urban economies. Artisans, shopkeepers, and household staff supported Rome's cities and elite lifestyles. Skilled slaves, rhetoricians, doctors, or engineers, enhanced wealth and status for their owners, while unskilled laborers sustained everyday functions. Economic dependence on slavery had long-term effects. It allowed Rome to maintain military campaigns, fund monumental architecture, and dominate trade across the Mediterranean. Yet, it also created social tensions. Slave revolts, like Spartacus's rebellion, exposed vulnerabilities and the human cost of this economic model. Understanding slavery in Rome reveals how human exploitation was systemically tied to wealth and power. The empire's grandeur, its roads, temples, and monuments, was built on coerced labor. The legacy of these economic practices illustrates the complex interplay between conquest, finance, and society, lessons that resonate far beyond antiquity. Rome's empire thrived not only on conquest, but also on an intricate system of taxation and trade. Taxes were collected from provinces in coin, goods, and labor, funding the military, public works, and the lavish lifestyles of the elite. The tributum, direct taxes on land and wealth, ensured a steady flow of revenue, while indirect taxes on trade, markets, and customs enriched both Rome and local tax collectors. Trade networks spanned the Mediterranean, linking Egypt's grain, Hispania's silver, Gaul's wine, and Asia's spices. Merchant fleets transported goods to urban centers, where markets buzzed with economic activity. Roman ports like Ostia became hubs of finance, warehousing, and commerce. Coinage standardized trade, enabling merchants and the state to calculate profits, loans, and investments. Rome's taxation and trade were mutually reinforcing. Taxes financed armies that protected trade routes. Trade profits funded further taxation and investment. Elite families often acted as intermediaries, lending money to provincial officials or investing in import-export ventures. Public works, roads, aqueducts, and harbors facilitated commerce while demonstrating imperial power. Yet, this economic system had vulnerabilities. Overtaxation could spark unrest, inefficient collection bred corruption, and reliance on distant provinces made Rome susceptible to rebellions or trade disruptions. Despite these risks, Rome's sophisticated integration of taxation, trade, and finance allowed it to sustain an empire for centuries, creating a wealth engine that fueled both power and culture. Understanding Rome's economy reveals a critical lesson. Wealth and authority are inseparable from the systems that collect, distribute, and circulate resources, a principle as relevant today as it was 2 millennia ago. Rome's military campaigns were more than tools of territorial expansion. They were engines of economic power. Conquered regions were required to pay tribute, provide labor, and supply resources, directly enriching the Roman state. Campaigns in Gaul, Hispania, North Africa, and the Near East funneled gold, silver, grain, and luxury goods into Rome's coffers. Legions served as both armies and administrators, enforcing taxation, securing trade routes, and supervising resource extraction. Spoils of war, treasures, slaves, and land were divided among generals, soldiers, and the state, creating incentives that tied military success directly to economic gain. Triumphs and public displays in Rome reinforced the link between conquest and wealth, legitimizing the empire's expansionist policies. The cycle was self-reinforcing. Military campaigns generated resources, resources funded armies, and armies secured new territories. This system allowed Rome to finance monumental infrastructure, public works, and cultural projects while maintaining domestic stability. Yet, reliance on conquest carried risks. Overextension, rebellion, or mismanagement could strain finances and provoke unrest. Still, Rome's integration of military might with economic extraction created a durable model of empire, one where power and wealth were inseparable, and strategic planning converted victories on the battlefield into lasting prosperity.